So let's have question answer round. I just saw, I'm looking at questions that we have. If I calculate, this is from Anand. If I calculate strategy 03 doing division, I need to include this class in the jar. Can you explain why it is easy to use? Anand, we need not to include that in jar. We can separately compile it and ship it to our customers as a patch. That I think I have explained it. Is it, another is Chetan Shah, is it necessary for the client to know about all the concrete implementation of this strategy? Definitely it is necessary for the client to know all the concrete implementation that a particular component is having, which they need in their application. What I mean to say is, a component having several algorithms as a strategy implemented, it is not necessary that all client needs all those implementation. Also, you need not to go in detail of the concrete, how that is implemented. That client need not to worry about. Client just take the instance or the singleton instance of concrete and use it. Bhavna, when should context in strategy pattern be used? Yeah, I explained it earlier also that it might be possible that some of the common data that might be required by more than one strategies to work upon, that data can be put into the context. Is there any thumb rule to know when to use context or singleton? Pradeep, I think Anton or singleton can easily be imagined when you work upon strategy. If you need instance, you have to go with enter, but simple calculation, simple algorithm that directly works on the data and then calculates some value and returns it, I think singleton behavior is sufficient for this strategy. Any question that is related to comparison of patterns, I think it is not good over here to reply on those, because many of you will not understand if you are not knowing the other patterns. So I am not replying to those questions. Can you please explain strategy pattern by using Java API? This is from Nayak, Jyotiranjan Nayak. Java API, I have taken example of, I have already taken example for checksum, where the checksum is the interface and two of the classes, CRC32 and ALDER323, some class is implementing the strategy. That is basically used in CRC check for the stream that is passing through the some of the data that is passing through some of the streams. So it is internally using, Java is using to check the checksum. If we are having some requirement like we need to add new methods, behaviors to an existing behavior, how can we with the strategy pattern, can we implement the same strategy pattern? Jayashri Ghosh. Now it depends, Jayashri. Basically, if the behavior is common, existing behavior is common to the new behavior that we need to implement through strategy, the existing behavior can be moved to a super class, to a basically base class, and your concrete strategy can use that in the subclasses and give the additional algorithm behavior in the concrete implementation. So there will be a layer in the strategy pattern implementation for the behavior, inheritance layer basically. Bhupesh, so we can say encapsulation is the core in the strategy pattern. Bhupesh, I think encapsulation is core for many design patterns or the code examples that you see in the Java, because it is one of the main principle of object-oriented. Inheritance, encapsulation, interfacing, these are a few pillars of the object-oriented. Luca, what are the defects, limits of the strategy pattern? As far as limit is concerned, I don't think that is there any defect or limit in the strategy pattern, except for that instead of state coding we are using object oriented, and that is bit difficult to understand. Anand, what do you mean by delivering a patch? Okay, Anand, suppose I am developing a component, and there are around hundreds of clients that are using that component, and that component is a jar file, and I am using somewhere inside that component a strategy pattern and many other patterns. So it's very easy for me to give a patch. Means what I can do, I can use the same jar and I can create a new concrete class in a separate project, compile it, make a new jar and distribute it to all of my clients. The advantage that I have is, otherwise I need to test the whole component. Instead, I need not to test the whole component. I just make a new small component, that is patch, and test it properly and deliver it to all of my clients. So you normally come across when you receive patches. So that is very easy in strategy pattern.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, web events made easy.
Taken to make the foolproof. Bhavna. If your requirement is for strategy pattern and you are using the strategy pattern, I don't think is there any case of any sort of failure, unless otherwise you need to use null object pattern.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, web events made easy.
Jayashri Ghosh, can we get some more explanation on using context regarding this strategy pattern? I will try to explain it again. Say this is your interface, and you are having concrete strategy 1, concrete strategy 2, and this is your context. your client application basically needs to apply those algorithms inside the application for some of or the other reasons. And some of the data will be different for all these strategies, but there are some data that are common to all these calls for the strategy. So you can have those data inside the context. You call the context with the required common data values. My voice is echoing, and the context data can be made available to strategy through the context. So in this way, you can use.
Mr. Hemant, if you can, your speakers are on. That's the reason you are able to hear it.
No, my speakers are off. Actually, I'm using headphone.
Okay. Because we are also getting a double voice.
So somebody else, I think, somebody's mic is on, which is having speaker. Okay. So I think one or two more questions I can reply, and then we can conclude. Shall we achieve strategy pattern by using abstract classes and interface? Yeah, definitely. For the common implementation, we can have abstract classes, but strategy should be implemented through interface only. There are few questions that are related to programming scenarios, so I am not replying on those, because whenever you program on a situation, you should at that time you should decide on those things. In a large scale application, what optimization can be done in strategy, Luca? Okay, large scale application. Let me explain it. So what I mean, I understand is large scale application is not the issue. The issue is that if there are many strategies, say hundreds of strategies. So strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3. So you need to check if there is some common code, because that will be a duplication of code in all these strategies, and duplication of code is always prone to errors. So what you can do is you can have a either use the context for the common implementation, or you can have a superclass for these three classes, or for the group of the strategies that have common code, and implement that common code over here. So this complete will be concrete, then concrete implementation, where some of the portion of code will be at the superclass and the remaining code will be over here. So the code duplication can be avoided. So I think I have gone through almost all the questions. How will the context object obtain an instance of strategy implementation to delegate to? Context object will be having instance of strategy either through the constructor or through the setter method. Is there any cons for the design pattern? I don't think if the requirement is for strategy, you should go with the strategy design pattern. Shall we archive strategy pattern by using abstract classes and interface? I couldn't understand this problem properly, this question. Chintan Shah, can we give a real world example where we may implement strategy? Yeah, Chintan, there can be many places. Whenever you need to apply one algorithm out of several, you can go for strategy. For example, suppose I need to convert my input data into either JSON form or into some sort of XML form or into plain text form. So conversion of my input data to 3 different forms of data. I need one of these 3 at a given run. So I need to strategy at that point. So we should go for strategy at that situation. Anil Kapoor, context is the application context or you are just using the reference to explain? No, this is not application context. This is a context of the strategy where we need different strategy to use the same context. Same context means the same data to work upon. So this is not application context. So I have done with all the questions. How exception should be handled from the different strategies? That depends whether you want to log the exception or you want to throw the exception. If you want to throw, you should maintain those throws clause in your interface. You should mention there. How the strategy pattern different from factory pattern? I think comparison, as earlier I have told, we are not taking the comparison. But these two patterns are similar in structure, but factory pattern always gives a new instance of the object. The purpose is altogether different, where the strategy you need to apply one algorithm out of several. Yeah, thank you, Nayak. One more question from Chintan is, in our context example, isn't our data different? Yeah, definitely, Chintan. In our context example, we have used A and B. I have already mentioned that we are missing the context data in our example. I have shown you how the context can be used if there is a requirement of having a context data, and I have already shown the place where we can have the context data. But in our example application, we haven't taken any context data because the purpose is not the complexity of the algorithm, but the purpose was to explain the strategy. Yeah, thanks Gupta, Saurabh Gupta. What are the alternatives for handling new requirements in strategy pattern? Pradeep. Pradeep, it again depends on the implementation. Basically, if you are creating strategy in your own application, or whether it's a separate package or maybe it's a separate module or maybe a separate component, if you need to create a new strategy, just implement that interface. If you need to modify some of this strategy, just modify that particular class only. So new requirements, what I understand is new algorithm is required. So implement the interface, and if you are having some abstract class for common behavior, use that. Yeah, thanks Ganesh. Where exactly this pattern comes into picture in web application? I think this can be easily imagined that in web application we have basically three tiers. At UI level, if you are using JavaScript, it might be required to use one algorithm out of several, so you can implement this strategy in JavaScript, or maybe at middle layer or at data layer also. So anywhere it can be used. It is not necessary that a strategy pattern comes only with the Java. You can actually, in any object-oriented language, you can implement this strategy, but the way of implementation might be different. Or the design patterns normally applies to all object-oriented programming languages, with the limitation, within the limitations of that particular programming language. Any more questions?
We'll take just 2 or 3 more questions here now. Rest of the questions we'll take offline.
Okay. Thank you, Shruti. Yeah, thanks to all of you. Vinay, thank you. And thanks, Chintan.
We're done with almost all the questions. So thanks, Mr. Hemant, for your informative session on Java design patterns and strategy pattern. It was indeed an enlightening session. I would also like to thank our participants for their support in this making this webinar a huge success. The recording of this webinar will be available on techgig.com by tomorrow. Gentlemen, the next session in Database Development Series is happening this Thursday, 16 February at 3 p.m. Topic for the webinar is Demystifying DB2 Data Sharing Capabilities on Mainframe. We'll be having Captain Uday Prasad, Delivery Manager at Tech Mahindra, as our guest speaker. So see you all on Thursday at 3 p.m. Till then, have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.